interesting times. Today's stories. Tragedy strikes after an overcrowded ferry capsizes in Tanzania. Theresa May critics kick off Save Brexit rallies. U.S. announces awful abuses of Muslim Uyghurs detained in China.
Hundreds of thousands and possibly millions of Uyghurs are held against their will in so-called re-education camps.
Trump says Kavanaugh was born for the U.S. Supreme Court.
He was born for the U.S. Supreme Court. He was born for it. And it's going to happen.
GoFundMe campaign raises over $200K to help Kavanaugh's accuser.
Issues about women raising concerns about bad behavior by men.
Plus, the Iglesia Ni Cristo and the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation reaches out to Hurricane Florence victims.
And even provide relief to those who were affected by the recent floodings here in the Carolinas.
Hello everyone, I am Rose Papa Angeles, bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. A Tanzanian minister said the death toll from a crowded ferry capsizing in Lake Victoria rose sharply to 207 Saturday as rescue workers found a lucky survivor. Public radio quoted the transport minister as updating the number of dead from 170 earlier in the day. According to state media, Joseph Makundi, a lawmaker for the Ukuri district, said there were 41 known survivors among the passengers of the MV Nyerere, a ferry built to carry 100 people. It capsized on Thursday close to the pier on Ukara Island. Although hopes were fading of finding any more survivors by day 3 of the search effort, workers rescued an engineer who had managed to locate a pocket of air in the vessel. According to Mukendi, the engineer had shot himself into a special room. Tanzanian President John Magufuli on Friday ordered the arrest of ferry management. Witness said the ferry sank when passengers rushed to one side to disembark as it approached the dock. Others blamed the captain, saying he had made a brusque maneuver. In a speech broadcast on TBC1 public television, Magufuli said it appears clear that the ferry was overloaded. He added, "Negligence has cost us so many lives, children, mothers, students, old people." He added, "I ordered the arrest of all those involved in the management of the ferry. Their arrests have already begun."
Ilikata kona ya kasi. Baada ya kukata kona ya kasi, kulikuwa na kenta yenye mizigo ikawa imeanguka upande ambao ilipomaliza kuanguka haikurudi tena kwa mitakaa sawa. Magunia pia ya mahindi nayo yakaporomoka kikageuka jumla ikatufunika.
Critics of Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit proposal across several parties staged the first in a planned series of rallies on Saturday aimed at mounting support for a clean break with the European Union. The Save Brexit campaign kicked off at the football grounds of Bolton, a northwestern town with high levels of public opposition to the bloc. It was headlined by May's former Brexit Secretary David Davis and others opposed to her attempts to keep close post-Brexit trade relations with the remaining 27 European Union member states. Former UKIP party leader Nigel Farage told about 1,000 cheering supporters, quote, "We didn't vote for whatever negotiations may lead to. We didn't vote for a series of deals." He said this was a vote about us taking back our country, taking back the ability to make our laws, taking back control of our borders, and being an independent nation. Farage later called EU leaders a bunch of gangsters and bully boys. The 80-minute event did not generate much British media attention, but represented the difficulties May is facing both at home and abroad as the clock ticks down to March 29, Brexit deal deadline day. European Union leaders lined up at a summit in Salzburg on Thursday to condemn May's proposal for post-Brexit trade relations and the Irish border. Brussels believes May wants Britain to keep the benefits of free trade on goods with the European Union without following its other rules. The so-called Brexiters who gathered in Bolton on Saturday think May is giving Brussels too much ground. They included May's Tory party member Davis, along with Farage and opposition Labour Party MP Kate Hoey. Davis said, quote, "We have nothing to fear. We should only accept a clean and clear Brexit, not some weak compromise." The new campaign echoes the one Brexit advocates staged ahead of the 2016 referendum on leaving the European Union. The current Leave Means Leave campaign website features a large photo of a double-decker bus emblazoned with a slogan reading, "Stop the Brexit Betrayal." Up next, U.S. denounces awful abuses of Muslim Uyghurs detained in China. Trump says Kavanaugh was born for the U.S. Supreme Court. And GoFundMe campaign raises over $200K to help Kavanaugh's accuser. Eagle News Washington, D.C. will return in a moment.
Tataas na naman daw yung presyo ng gasolina.
Basically, ang solar panel ina-absorb ang sunlight that is turned into electricity.
Tingin niyo po, Gob, kayo po sa mga sir na mapro-promote niyo sa buong Pilipinas yung windmill.
Alam mo, nag-umpisa niyan, na-obsess kami ni Bongbong pag-aaral dyan. Dahil laging tumitirik yung kuryente dito. I love Voltus 5!
Eagle News Teams are fair.
Sa impeachment complaint laban kay Supreme Court Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno, ang ilang maestra...
Ang rekomendasyon na makasuhan ang mga sangkot kasama na ang mga opisyal ng customs.
Hardworking.
Magpapaunlad ng isang bata na magiging isang future youth leaders.
Dedicated.
Sa nasawi ay dito natagpuan yung bangkay.
Ito yung kanilang paraan ng pag-aalaga ng mga may sakit na leprosy noong unang panahon.
Committed to public service.
Ang chairmanship ng ASEAN sa bansang Singapore.
Marami yung mga biktima ng mga nawawala. Mamambahan ng Bureau of Customs na nasa merkado na yung mga pinaging produkto.
Sa kapila ng mga kilos protesta na nanatiling
dahil
payapa.
Dahil sa mabilis na pagresponde ng mga pamatay sunog, ang apoy mabilis na
nagkaroon ng equal opportunity ang ibang mga kababaihan.
Ng mga kabataan at ipinakita sa pamagitan ng kanilang mga likha.
Nanatiling kulang pa rin ang tubig para sa irigasyon, para sa pagtatanim ng ating mga kababayang magsasaka.
As we live in interesting times.
ASEAN in Focus, Monday to Friday, 2 to 2:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Friday denounced awful abuses of Muslim Uyghurs detained in Chinese re-education camps.
hundreds of thousands and possibly millions of Uyghurs are held against their will in so-called re-education camps, where they're forced to endure severe political indoctrination and other awful abuses. Their religious beliefs are decimated. And we're concerned, too, about the intense new government crackdown on Christians in China, which includes heinous actions like closing churches, burning Bibles, and ordering followers to sign papers renouncing their faith.
Beijing has rejected UN estimates that more than 1 million members of Muslim minorities are being held in internment camps in China's western Xinjiang region. In a letter to Pompeo and U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, Republican and Democratic members of the U.S. Congress late last month called for sanctions on Chinese officials implicated in the internment of Uyghurs. Pompeo did not say in the speech whether he would take punitive measures. He also expressed concern about the fate of Christians in China who he said had been targeted in a government crackdown. The government, he said, has been closing churches, burning Bibles, and ordering followers to sign papers renouncing their faith. U.S. President Donald Trump defends his Supreme Court nominee, saying the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh is going to happen.
He was born for the U.S. Supreme Court. He was born for it. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We have to fight for him, not worry about the other side. And by the way, women are for that more than anybody would understand.
Donald Trump ditched his earlier restraint Friday in the scandal threatening his Supreme Court nominee, declaring that the woman who accuses the would-be justice of sexual assault when they were teens should not be believed. A showdown in the mounting political battle over the nominee, Judge Brett Kavanaugh, and his accuser, California-based Professor Christine Blasey Ford, appeared set for next week. The leader of the Republican-dominated Senate Judiciary Committee announced that a confirmation vote will be held Monday unless Ford agrees by Friday 10 p.m. to testify within the next few days. She has so far refused, accusing Trump loyalists of intending to deny her a fair hearing and to give the conservative Kavanaugh the green light regardless. Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley said in a statement, quote, "I'm providing a notice of a vote to occur Monday in the event that Dr. Ford's attorneys don't respond or Dr. Ford decides not to testify." Grassley's ultimatum chimed with Trump's abrupt change of tone earlier. Previously, the president had led Republicans in insisting that Ford must be given a respectful, fair hearing, even if he fully vouched for Kavanaugh's character. But the gloves came off Friday, reflecting Trump's fear that time is running out to get the judge confirmed, thereby tilting the Supreme Court firmly to the right for years to come before November elections when Republicans risk losing control of Congress. "Take the vote," Trump tweeted, blaming, quote, "radical left-wing politician" for the controversy. Trump rejected the credibility of Ford's claim to have been sexually assaulted by a drunken Kavanaugh when they attended neighboring private schools near Washington in the early 1980s. According to Trump, the fact that Ford remained silent until now shows the incident probably never happened, even if this runs counter to what experts says is a typical reaction of sexual assault victims, afraid or embarrassed to report. Trump wrote, quote, "I have no doubt that if the attack on Dr. Ford was as bad as she says, charges should have been immediately filed with local law enforcement authorities by either her or her loving parents. Why didn't someone call the FBI 36 years ago?" The senior Democrat in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, called Trump's logic a highly offensive misunderstanding of surviving trauma. More concerning for Trump might have been the angry reaction of one of his own Republican senators, Suzanne Collins, who sits on the Judiciary Committee. She told U.S. media, quote, "I was appalled by the president's tweet. We know that allegations of sexual assault are some of the most underreported crimes that exist, so I thought that the president's tweet was completely inappropriate and wrong." Trump's outburst saw a new #MeToo era storm the internet with #WhyIDidn'tReport, the top trending conversation starter on U.S. Twitter, as people, mostly women, vented outrage over past transgressions and voiced solidarity with Ford. The professor behind a GoFundMe campaign that has raised over $200,000 to cover security expenses for Christine Blasey Ford, the woman who has accused Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault, says she wants to help support the democratic due process and isn't surprised that Ford has received threats.
And I had this somewhat fanciful image of all of the people I knew who were supportive of her taking turns being her bodyguards. And then immediately I thought, well, obviously that's, fanciful, but we could maybe raise the money to make it easier for her to hire professional security. A prominent woman who's challenging a process that some number of people think is definitely supposed to go the way of a powerful man are particularly likely to receive a certain type of vicious blowback. There has been a real amount of political consciousness raising, not just around Me Too and issues about women raising concerns about bad behavior by men, but across, again, a wide swath of American society, that our civic institutions cannot have integrity if we don't actively improve them. We're not all always going to agree on every outcome. I do think that what we can agree on, we can make further progress on, is how we can feel comfortable with a specific outcome, even if it isn't the outcome we personally would vote for if we were in the Senate.
Coming up, the Iglesia Ni Cristo and the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation reaches out to Hurricane Florence victims. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly.
Know the latest news and information here and abroad. In Aguila, Balita. Track the latest happenings in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Be aware of important events in Asia, in ASEAN in Focus, and be updated in the biggest news around the world in Eagle News International. Tune into Mata ng Aguila and get the day's headlines and news that are sharp, accurate, and objective. Only here at Net 25. As Eagle Broadcasting Corporation marks its 50th year, it is conducting several activities under the theme EBC Cares, enabling a better community. Health and nutrition are key factors on child's learning and well-being. EBC's feeding program encourages the community to combat malnutrition among children and ensure them a healthy future. EBC's cleanup drive and citronella planting hopes to help the community in caring for the environment and preventing diseases such as dengue. EBC's public service program, Paglilingkod sa Bayan, Serbisyo para sa Mamamayan, has opened its doors to government agencies so more people can avail of these services. EBC's blood donation program and medical mission continue to spearhead life-saving projects, and EBC's livelihood seminar teaches and guides those who want to have additional income and business. EBC Cares, serving the people in these interesting times.
Landmarks, Linggo, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
The
This is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. I am Rose Papa Angeles. A few days after Hurricane Florence ravaged the Carolinas, the Iglesia Ni Cristo, in cooperation with the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, reaches out to Florence victims in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Heather Canles with the story.
Here in Jacksonville, North Carolina, about 50 miles from Wrightsville Beach, where Hurricane Florence made landfall, the Iglesia Ni Cristo, in cooperation with the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, are distributing hundreds of packages of relief goods to the victims of Hurricane Florence. Though the storm has passed, Hurricane Florence's record-breaking rainfall has transformed local highways into rivers. Flooding, storm debris, and power outages continue to impact local residents.
As I have traveled through many of the counties, it's heartbreaking to see some of the damage. And I think the reason that that it can hurt your heart so much is because you know that there are people for whom life will always be different now. If they suffered either hurricane damage, or in many cases in parts of North Carolina, it was the flooding. It will take quite a long time for them to fully recover, if they ever fully recover. And so for some people, we have to start to talk with them about what a new normal may be for them. Other folks, even here in this neighborhood near where the shelter is, they don't appear to have suffered major damage. And in fact, it almost looks like they're going on with life as normal. And so there is kind of that dichotomy between folks who are going to face a long recovery and those who won't. I think there will almost be two types of disaster recovery that will unfold. There were people who had damage more from the hurricane, from high winds, and then we have a lot of people who are still being affected by the flooding. And that flooding damage will be a whole different type of recovery, and that recovery may take a very long time. We have 17 counties in North Carolina right now that have been approved for individual assistance. That will open up an array of disaster help for people who are affected. There are also a number of counties in South Carolina, and there are some counties that will get help for that community infrastructure separate from the individual assistance. So a large area. All of eastern North Carolina has been affected by Florence.
Well, we're pretty blessed. We didn't have any real damage to the house itself. We had some trees that were blown over, and parts of our fence were blown over, and a play set, swing set that was damaged, and we had to get rid of. But some of our neighbors weren't so lucky. They had their roofs torn up and damaged, water getting inside the house, and ceilings caving in and everything. I mean, just 3 or 4 houses down the block on either side. Plus, there's a lot of flooding, which kind of isolates this area when that happens, so there was very little food in the stores. They're starting to get restocked now, so it's starting to get a little bit better.
We're here to actually pass out care packages to help those who are in need, who lost power, lost some food, and hopefully get them something to help out as while they're trying to recover from the hurricane. And I also wanted my children to also see that the church does so much to help those who are in need, not just those in church, but also our fellow men around the community also to give out and give what we can to help them.
The FYM Foundation and the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ were tasked by the Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, to share the best that they can in order to assist and even provide relief to those who were affected by the recent floodings here in the Carolinas, especially here in Jacksonville and even Wilmington areas. We were mobilized by the church administration that we can give as quick as we can, the best that we can, not only by sharing material things like the care packages, but more so spiritual counselings and guidance, and also prayer for those who were affected by these recent calamities. This is the least that we can do, and especially our care and also concern for them. I know this is not a one-time effort, and this is not only found in one location only. In fact, even in different parts of the states. And if we go across the oceans, There are even relief efforts that were conducted by members all over the world, in Africa, in Asia, in some parts of Europe, and even in Australia, and even in Canada. We are so thankful because the community band together, mobilized by the effort to love one another as God our Lord loves us, together with His Son, our Lord Jesus Christ.
From Jacksonville, North Carolina, I am Heather Canlis, and I am 1 with 25.
Thank you, Heather. That is today's Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Join us tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.ph and eaglenewslive.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenewsph. Thank you for watching. I am Rose Papa Angeles, and I am 1 with 25.